My brief focus on South Africa was incredibly intentional because I now have the distinct honor to introduce the Honorable Minister Stella Ndabeni Abrahams, the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies for the Republic of South Africa. Prior to her appointment, the minister served as the Deputy Minister for Telecommunications and Postal Services, where she led the development of South Africa's National Digital Skills Strategy and the launch of the Fourth Industrial Revolution Skills Forum. The Honorable Minister currently serves in the UN Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development as one of 3 African ministers, and is also the co-chair of the World Economic Forum on the Internet of Things. She also serves as the chair and member of several other committees. I could go on, but I'm sure you would all rather hear from the minister herself. So without further ado, please join me in warmly welcoming the Honorable Minister Stella Ndabeni Abrahams to the virtual stage.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, colleagues, to you all. Of course, the first thing to do is to thank the program director, Danielle, and of course, pass my greetings to my counterparts, my dear sister, the Minister of Information and Communication Technologies from Rwanda, Paula, and of course, the Minister of Communications and the Digital Economy from the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, Ibrahim Pantami, Mr. Leslie Mabre, Ms. Florezil Liza, of course, the representatives of the AU Commission, representative of various states in the continent, distinguished guests, and of course, very importantly, the acting director of the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, of Mr. Ino Ibong. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to be engaging with you on such an important topic that has not only affected us as a country, but that affects the world. At the center of it is the organization that has been done by the respective organization in terms of the USTDA, who had made sure that they really try to bring on board critical stakeholders on their quest to connect the unconnected. Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm speaking to you, today the date is the 26th, and of course, 6 days along, which was on the 18th of July, the United Nations General Assembly launched the Nelson Mandela International Day in recognition of his birthday as the father of democracy, and of course, a son of the soil and a global icon, as we know him. For us, the month of July reminds us of the contribution, the principles, the values, and everything that Dada Mandela stood for. And of course, this year's theme is "One hand can feed the other." This reminds us that we need each other to change the world for the better. It shows us that it is through cooperation and collaboration that we can be able to ensure that we bridge the digital divide that exists in our society. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking to you once more. A week later, when South Africa went through not only a historic, but a painful process, reminding us of the past, where we come from as a country, wherein we saw too much protests that, of course, were embedded in 2 provinces that are critical for our economy, the province of KwaZulu-Natal and certain aspects of Gauteng. And amongst the contributing factors that led to the protest is this that I believe we all have a responsibility over. One of the critical things that we observed is that the people who were highly involved in the protest were young and unemployed citizens of our country. This therefore tells us that as much as they are using a particular cause to advance their interest, but at the center of it is that we all need to pay attention to. A time-ticking bomb because of the people who feel that they do not belong to a state in terms of their participation in the economy. It talks of people who say we appreciate the developments, the investments, and everything that are happening in South Africa. But if it's at the expense of our exclusion, therefore, we do not value it, which is why we said, let's go back to the drawing board to address all those that we view as critical in terms of the economic inclusion of the citizens of our country, especially the youth, that we all agree that it is the future of the country and they are the ones that can advance the interests that we're talking about. As we talk about access, of course, at the center of it is getting people connected. As I made reference to the unrest that we saw in the past weeks, one of the critical things that happened as a damage to our sector was us observing the damaging or the banning of the towers. About 113 towers that were banned in South Africa. Many small businesses that get to benefit economically on the ecosystem of the ICT were affected. But not only that, some of the young people that are employed by those companies stand a risk of losing their jobs. At the center of it is the lack of integration of the economy. And as I said, as we look into it, to say how do we then devise means and ways to ensure that we can bring the majority of our country into the economic ecosystem. As we talk about the economy, at the center of it is to say, as we talk about the two critical provinces that I said were affected, Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. At the center of that is the infrastructure development that goes with that. Not only the economic participation, but to say, yes, we have observed there's lots of malls that are here, but our people are not even enjoying the benefits of workers. They highlighted the entire ecosystem, starting from security companies or officials, the cleaning companies that do not belong to any of the locals, including the infrastructure that I made reference to. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, the emergence of COVID-19 too has also proved to the world that technology is the future and access to ICT infrastructure becomes critical thereof in order to advance development. So for us, as we are looking at the challenges that we are faced with, and looking at the successes that we celebrate as the country and the world, we're also looking at the impact that COVID has had or is continuing to have in our economy. At the center of it, again, it is without doubt that access to broadband is the lever to socio-economic inclusion and an absolute necessity. If we are to win this battle and fight, we've got to make sure that we bridge the digital divide. It means that we've got to make sure that we do not only connect the unconnected, but they become part of the mainstream value chain, which talks to including the development of the apps, amongst other things that belong to the value system that we're talking about. One of the critical things, or some of the critical things that COVID-19 really exposed to us was the rapidly reversed economy on the health sector, other social gains that we have made as countries over the past decade. Of course, as we talk about education, more than 90% countries worldwide had adopted remote learning policies. Whilst we applaud this as the continent, we're also cognizant of the fact that ourselves as Africa have about 158 million learners who could not learn remotely, as the adopted policies did not target them. Access to ICT such as personal computers, the internet was identified as the main challenge, especially in poorer households. Program Director, let me share our humble experience in ensuring that education does not suffer because of COVID-19 As any responsible department and government, we had to come up with measures. And of course, we take pride in reporting on the success of those interventions. Of course, that was a collaboration between government and the private sector. Amongst the interventions that we introduced, we issued the temporary spectrum to operators, whilst the process of licensing of spectrum is still continuing. We ensure that there's accelerated broadband connecting schools, health facilities, and other government facilities through a government program that is known as SA Connect. Our operators came on board by zero rating the education and health content. The broadcasters provided education slots for learners. And of course, there was provision of gadgets for learners once more. And all of this was made possible by the collaboration, as I said. Technology is fast reshaping our world. Our responsibility as leaders is to respond to ensure that we make digital transformation a reality for all. Program Director, I must appreciate the investment put by various US companies in Africa. It is really commendable. We must deliberate in ensuring that the SMMEs benefit from the digital infrastructure access, as they are critical to full realization of the much talked about African continental free trade area. We also need to strengthen the infrastructure that links our economies, businesses, and people together. And this must not only focus on transport, but should be inclusive of the ICT sector. As I said earlier, ICTs are critical in linking businesses and people together, providing the first step in strengthening the regional integration. We can only achieve all of this by creating access to the digital infrastructure. It is therefore important to continue to prioritize and strengthen our programs to build our regional and national ICT infrastructure and the digital economy. Of course, this will go a long way in ensuring that we fully benefit from the FCTA. In addition, it is critical that we also look at the ICT sector from the perspective of local economic development, as I stated earlier. How can we develop and nurture local production of ICTs, including both hardware and software, as well as in the creative industries? These are the questions that we ought to respond to, as I spoke of the economic inclusion of the locals, so that they do not stand up and riot against government because they do not feel that these investments talk to them. As participants of the workshop, we have to come up with ideas on how we resolve the issues around the digital divide and build an ecosystem that can benefit everyone, from multinationals, entrepreneurs, innovators, and consumers of the technology that we're talking about. The speed of change of technology demands equals speed in acquiring the skills that the industry demands. Failure to act in this regard relegates one's workforce to the labor market periphery and ultimate unemployment. This is why, as the department, we came up with a national digital skills strategy. That is why we said we have a responsibility to build a capable 4R army, which looks at those that are unemployed, which looks at those that are young, which looks at those that are employed, and of course, the elderly. Because if we take into consideration that everybody has to become a digital literate, and therefore we believe that we would have then delivered a successful and meaningful digital economy, as they will not only know how to utilize technologies, but they will also contribute meaningfully through their shared experience and the knowledge that they acquire, they will make sure that they will help even the multinationals to adapt to the local, cultural, and other characteristics that we are looking at. And the spirit of bridging the digital divide and building scales of the digital economy, Program Director, I will request that all participants in this workshop today to do a mind mapping exercise and develop a proposal on how the continent will benefit from the 5G opportunities and, of course, bridge the digital divide. This is a task that requires all of us, those that are looking at profit making, those that are looking at serving the public and getting more votes, but at the center of it, those that want to contribute to the growth of the economy that we seek to build. As collective of actors in the public and private sector, academia, and civil society, we have a role to play. The time is now. I thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. What a true honor to have you here with us today. And thank you so much for sharing those profound words with us about South Africa's digital transformation and work to bridge the digital divide and increase access to broadband to support economic inclusion.